Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am Cadet Ryan Venesu, the Detachment 720 Dining Out Officer. And on behalf of Detachment 720, I would like to welcome you all here tonight. At this time, please rise and remain standing for the entrance of the official party, and remain standing for the posting of the colors, the national anthem, and the invocation.
Color guard, post the colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please bow your heads. God, we thank you for bringing us together tonight and for giving us this time with family and friends. We ask you for safety over the servicemen and women fighting across the world and to bring peace to their families at home. Thank you for providing great leaders to go before us to serve and protect this country. And we ask for your blessing on our graduating seniors as they begin to serve. God, we ask that you bless this food, the time we share together tonight, and allow us to return home safely. Amen. I would like to request that we now have a moment of silence for all of the Americans fighting overseas and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the defense of our country.
Ladies and gentlemen, take your seat.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our annual Penn State Air Force ROTC Spring Dining Out. I'm Cadet Colonel Jolena, the Detachment 720 Wing Commander, and I would like to introduce to you all the official party and the President of the mess. Please call on your name. Please call when I call your name, and please hold all applause until the end. Director of Intelligence, U.S. Cyber Command, Fort George Meade, Maryland, Brigadier General Matteo Martinucci, and his wife, Miss Rebecca Martinucci. The President of the Mess, Commander of Detachment 720, Colonel Lawrence Havard, and his wife, Jennifer Havard. Superintendent of Detachment 720, Master Sergeant Simons, and her husband, Mr. Zachary Simons. My very own mother and father, Tom Jolena and Mary Jolena, and our very own AS-100 Cadet Ackman. Will all other current and retired members of the Armed Services please stand to be recognized? Thank you, and please take your seats as I welcome Cadet Philby as this evening's Vice President.
Good evening, everyone. I would now like to request your participation in the toasts. The appropriate toast responses can be found just inside the back cover of this evening's program. Will the members of the mess please rise and charge their toasting glasses?
I propose a toast to the Commander-in-Chief.
I propose a toast to the Chief Staff of the United States Army.
I propose a toast to the Chief of Naval Operations.
I propose a toast to the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force.
I propose a toast to the Chief of Staff of the United States Space Force.
I propose a toast to the official party.
I propose a toast to the distinguished guests.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and charge your glasses with water, and remain silent for the presentation of the prisoner of war missing in action.
Good evening.
I'm Cadet Zachary Dickinson, a member of Detachment 720, Air Force ROTC. You may have noticed a small table when you arrived here this evening. Please allow me to further explain. The table is set for 5, representing each of the 5 services: Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. This table recognizes the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called prisoners of wars and missing in action, but we call them brothers and sisters. They are unable to be with us this evening, so we remember them for their unselfish service to our nation and for the liberties and freedoms we enjoy as Americans, thanks to them. The table is small, showing the frailty of a single man. Remember, the tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives when answering to the call of duty. Remember, the single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the life of each of the missing, the loved ones and friends of these Americans who keep the faith, awaiting answers. Remember, the vase is tied with a red ribbon, symbol of our continued determination to account for our missing. Remember, a slice of lemon on the bread plate is to remind us of the bitter fate of those captured and missing in a foreign land. Remember, a pinch of salt symbolizes the tears endured by those missing and their families who seek answers. Remember, the glass is inverted to symbolize their inability to toast with us this evening. Remember, the chairs are empty. They are missing. Remember. Remember all of you who served with them and called them comrades, who depended on their might and aid and relied upon them, for surely they had not forsaken you. Remember.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Please be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Detachment 720 in our 2022 dining out. As is tradition within the military, when we gather in formal regalia, we have what's called a mess. The ceremony that I'm about to begin and show you now is how we open the mess. The mess is now open. Mr. Vice, please explain the rules of the mess.
Inside your pamphlet, you will find the rules of the mess. They will become important later. I suggest you all follow them. Don't worry, I'll explain later. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome here today. I am very excited to be your MC. I'm Cadet Philby. We have an exciting program for you this evening. We will start this evening with a performance from our Honor Guard trick demonstration. Upon completion of this performance, dinner will commence. Following dinner, this evening's activities will resume with a speech from Brigadier General Matteo Maramucci. Then we will have a tribute to this year's graduating seniors. They will be recognized with their escorts as they walk through the Saber Arch. Pictures of dancings will be afterwards. The Honor Guard trick team will now perform a routine showcasing their award-winning talent of the Honor Guard. Please refrain from using flash photography at this time.
Five. And put. Forward. Put. Right. Ooh. Colonel Havard, I present to you the Pennsylvania State University Detachment 720 Honor Guard Trick Squad. Mr. Smith, carry on. Thank you, sir. Right up. Ooh.
note, I will now read you the rules of the mess, because we have so violently just ignored all of it. So I will be reading, so please, with your pamphlets, find the rules of the mess as you follow along with me, because again, they will become very important very quickly, I guarantee you. Now, the rules of the mess. Rule number 1, thou shalt arrive within 10 minutes of the appointed hour. So I severely hope that every single one of you has arrived on time. I cannot say things because you are all here. So as long as anybody does not walk through the door, as of right now, you guys are all safe. Rule number 2, thou shalt make every effort to meet all guests. So all introverts are very much in trouble, myself included. So I will try to meet all of you as much as I can. Thou shalt not move to the mess within 3 years of the chimes. Remain standing until seated by the president. I saw y'all, a lot of y'all in here. That's all I got to say about that. Rule number 4. Thou shalt participate in all toasts unless thyself or thy group is honored with a toast. So I all heard you hear the appropriate responses, so good on you for doing that. All right. Rule number 6. Or actually, rule number 5, thou shalt ensure that thy glasses is always charged when toasting. So do not toast with an empty glass. You will make yourself look like a fool. Rule number 6, thou shalt not murder the Queen's English. As you can tell, I am speaking very professionally and almost Shakespearean in a sense. So I implore you to not murder the Queen's English. Rule number 7, thou shalt not open the hangar doors. Talk about work or ROTC. As tempting as it all is, we are all in blues. We all like to talk about things that are familiar. I implore against it. Again, I will explain why. For those of you who know, know. Rule number 8, thou shalt not discuss the rules of the mess. Unfortunately, I am here amongst you right now, and I am taking that blame for all of you, as all of you have clapped, and I will get to that. Rule number 9, thou shalt not consume thy meal in a manner becoming gentle persons. So I guarantee you, do not eat with your hands, do not chomp, do not become carnivores. I implore you, be professional. Again, the warnings will come later. Rule number 10, thou shalt not laugh at ridiculously funny comments unless the president, Colonel Havert, first shows approval by laughing. So all of you laughing at my very terrible jokes, I severely hope that Colonel Havert is laughing along with you. See, all of you have made it to rule number 11. Please look as I read that out. Thou shalt express thine approval by tapping thy spoon on the table. Clapping of hands will not be tolerated. Congratulations, you have already violated the rules of the mess, every single one of you. There we go. Rule number 12. Thou shalt not question the decision of the president. What he says is law. Thou shalt not point. That's pretty self-explanatory. Rule number 14. When the mess adjourns, thou shalt rise and wait for the president and head table guests to leave. Rule number 15. Thou shalt enjoy thyself to the fullest, which I hope you all do. So now that we are all familiar with the rules, I guarantee you, and I implore you to please follow them with your utmost attention. Because again, my words of warning will ring true when I get to that portion. Now, all right. Dinner is now ready. Dessert will be available throughout the evening at the 2 side tables. We ask you please wait for the Penn State staff to indicate when your table should move to the buffet area. While you wait, please enjoy our cadet slideshow. Until then, mingle with your guests. Heed the rules of the mess. Greet the people at your table and enjoy yourselves. Speaker tonight, Brigadier General Matteo Matamucci. We are honored that he could take the time to be here with us this evening. Brigadier General Matteo Matamucci commissioned in 1994 as a graduate of the Penn State University. He is a career intelligence officer and cyberspace operator. He is command at squadron, group, and wing levels and has served on staff assignments with special operations, combat search and rescue, fighter aircraft, and signals intelligence units. He has deployed in support of Operations Decisive Endeavor, Southern Watch, Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, and Inherent Resolve. A fully qualified European Foreign Area Officer, he was fluent in Czech and conversant in Italian and Spanish languages. He is also a military parachutist with the 25 jumps under his belt from 7 different aircraft types. As a former Hoover Institution National Security Officers Fellow, Brigadier General Martinucci continues to speak publicly on issues of cyber strategy and policy. Prior to his current position, he served as the Director of Intelligence for the Combined Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve in Baghdad, ensuring the enduring defeat of the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Brigadier General Matteo Martinucci.
Not my first slide. We'll see how that goes. A lot that's coming up. Good evening, and thank you all for having me. Colonel Hazard, sir, thank you for the invitation. And to the guests of honor at the head table, to all the parents, to the friends, the dates, the families, thank you for making this such a special night. Thanks for the kind introduction as well. And the slides, when they come up, really are just sort of a visual assistance to a story that I want to tell you. But before I do, I just want to say one more time, what an absolute honor it is to be back here at home, because truly this is home for Rebecca and I. It's going to be home very soon as we are attempting desperately to wrap up this amazing 28-ish plus year Air Force adventure to put down roots here in State College, because there just is no place like Happy Valley. So, yeah. So whether you are a scholarship cadet or a POC who's already raised your right hand and taken the oath, or if you're a freshman who's still figuring out if this calling of service is for you, I want to make sure that you understand that you are already part of something truly, truly special. You are part of a team that wears the cloth of your nation. This blue cloth of the Airmen of the United States Air Force is just that. It is the cloth of your nation. And whether you know it or not, this story that I'm about to tell you is your story. And it's a story that you are already writing, whether you realize it or not, and it's a story that you'll continue to write. And it's a story of innovation. More importantly, it's a story of family. And that's the theme that I'm going to weave for you tonight. Woven in this blue thread is 113 years of history that continues to be made tonight. And I'm going to try to convince you that that is in fact the case. And I'm going to do it through a few stories. One of those stories started 113 years ago. Some of those stories are happening right now. Stories of innovation and stories of family. I'm going to start with an incredible story of that man up there on the screen, Benny Floyd. He is my favorite of the Air Force founding fathers. We've all heard about Hap Arnold and Billy Mitchell. There's a lot who make the press and make the history books, but Benny Floyd is unique. He's sort of the unsung hero of the foundations of our Air Force. And he just happens to be my favorite because his story is a story of innovation, which is inherent in our DNA as airmen. Benny was part of the Army Signal Corps. Let's see if I can make this work. There we go. Which had at the time a single balloon or a handful of balloons that they used for observation. And those balloons were the sum total of the Army's experience with anything to do with aviation. But in 1909, the Army entertained the idea of heavier than air flight, holding a competition for such a machine that would actually become the first aeroplane. They let a contract, the Army Signal Corps that is, to purchase one machine. And the brothers that won that contract, the Wrights, delivered by flying their aeroplane at 35 miles an hour around a closed course that started at Fort Myer, Virginia, right next to where the Pentagon is today. Here it is on that screen, being carted to the parade field by a wagon. And here it is, at its typical altitude over the Fort Myer parade field. The Army took delivery of this airplane, which they dubbed Signal Corps No. 1, in 1909. It got it, and they had no idea what to do with it. Benny Falloy, he had some ideas about heavier than air flight. He had actually written about this before the aeroplane existed, before it was delivered. He had been writing about this as a young lieutenant. And he, because of those writings, and it was his willingness to ask these big three questions that I call the big three. Some of you heard me talk about them on Thursday. Why, why not, and what if? And it was the writing about this thing called the aeroplane, asking, what if it could do this? Well, why can't we do that? They caught the eye of Signal Corps leadership. And because he caught their eye, he was one of the first few that began to get involved. Now, he did not get formal instruction from the Wrights. The first two that got that right were became pilots, Lieutenant Frederick Humphreys and Lieutenant Frank Lang. Sadly, Lieutenant Thomas Selfridge, who was the first assigned observer on those time trials with the Wrights, was killed in this crash a few months prior in 1908. So when Benny got the task to become part of this program, he had to be happy with only 3 hours of time as an observer in the right seat of Signal Corps No. 1, next to Orville and sometimes Woolbrook. But he never took off. He never landed. He never once actually flew the airplane when he got the mission to take this Signal Corps No. 1 down to San Antonio, Texas, Fort Sam, Houston. And in the most beautiful mission type orders ever written, and you'll learn if you haven't already about mission type orders, he received the orders, and they were simply this: teach yourself to fly and bring along plenty of spare parts. 2 sentences. Those were his orders. Teach yourself to fly and bring along plenty of spare parts. And that's exactly what he did. Falloy and 8 enlisted men disassembled Signal Corps No. 1, still damaged from a crash that ended the Fort Myer trials, by the way. Shipped it to Texas in 17 crates, and reassembled it on February 23, 1910, after building a shed next to a cavalry barn on the edge of the parade field at Fort Sam Houston, began to set up operations. Now, embodied in this one lieutenant and his team, and it was a fantastic team of officer, enlisted, and civilians in that team of 8 that you see there. Another powerful example of the teams that we build today, leveraging the expertise and the perspectives of the whole total force. He took that team, and we see in that team the foreshadowing of the bold innovation that defines our service from among all the other services. With all due respect to the incredible soldiers, sailors, and Marines in this room, there's a little something different about American Airmen. And it is this innovation, this willingness to be a little bold, a little different, and to question with those big three questions that sets us apart. Not only from our sister services, but from every Air Force in the world. And I believe that to my core. On that parade field in San Antonio, Benny made his first solo takeoff, his first landing, and his first crash, all without formal instruction. He was the first distance learning student in the Signal Corps, corresponding via telegraph with Orville and Wilbur up in Ohio. He literally would fly by day, and then he would telegraph at night, hey, I pushed the stick forward, the trees got really big, I pulled it back, it got really small, I did something, what am I doing right, what am I doing wrong? Today, the airmen that you will soon lead are earning associate's, bachelor's, and master's degrees via distance learning, just like Benny did. But they're doing it both at home and deployed while doing their full-time operational jobs. This is Tech Sergeant Mickey O'Callahan, a Det 720 cadre member from 2002 to 2005. He's a Special Ops Security Forces NCO at Duke Field in Florida right now. And he's getting his degree as a member of Penn State World Campus as we speak. Our airmen are also developing the coursework, building collaborative online training, and shattering the institutional barriers of traditional learning for their own Air Force specialties. Whether it's pilot training or cyberspace operations, today our airmen are teaching themselves how to fly in cyberspace, and they're doing it simultaneously building new cyber weapons as they do it. Speaking of the importance of innovation in education, U.S. Cyber Command is committed to partnering with academia because successful collective national defense depends not just on a whole-of-government approach, but on a whole-of-nation approach. And those approaches are rooted in partnerships. Cyber Command recently announced the creation of an academic engagement network of 92 colleges and universities, and I'm proud to say that Penn State is one of those in this academic consortium. And we expect great things from these partnerships As a matter of fact, my intelligence director has already held symposia with Stanford University's Hoover Institution to share insights on Chinese Communist Party's strategic aspirations in the cyberspace domain. And we've got Harvard undergrads partnering with us through the Harvard Undergraduate Foreign Policy Institute, or HUFPI. Undergraduate students doing academic research in partnership with U.S. Cyber Command on things of shared interest, like information operations in cyberspace. The new academic engagement network that I mentioned offers the opportunity for the kind of collaboration at unclassified venues that Cyber Command holds, like our Dreamport facility, where outside of suburban Baltimore, we've got a facility with full-up labs replicating entire cities, everything from power to transportation to water systems, where people can come in, operate, defend, and attack, and ensure security for civilian infrastructure all the way through military operations. And we're doing this all at an unclassified level, again, with the idea of educating and creating partnerships for future operations. For those of you, and I want to make mention of this because I know most of you in uniform here are either in the latter stages or at the very beginning stages. And I want to make sure that you know that serving doesn't have to be in uniform. In my own directorate of 500 or so people, 250 are civilians working for the Defense Intelligence Agency assigned to me. We have civilians working in the NSA, in DIA, and in other government agencies, all contributing to national defense in their own way, in a very, very critical way. So if any of this interests you, there are opportunities to serve both in and out of uniform in this critical field, in this critical domain. Cyber Command's partnerships truly need people like you to help it grow. And these academic partnerships that I described are just one way. But let's get back to Benny. Benny was an innovator, just like we expect you all to be as lieutenants in our Air Force. He kept getting tossed out of the seat on hard landings, and he would almost get thrown out of the airplane on those hot Texas turbulent days. So he developed the first seatbelt for the airplane. Amazingly, Signal Corps number 1, when delivered, didn't come with one. He acquired a saddle and took the saddle strap and made himself a seatbelt. Then he went on to put wheels on the airplane. It didn't have wheels. He said it needs wheels. He didn't ask anybody. He didn't, consult a technical manual. He just did it. Today, the airmen you are expected to lead are going to expect the same thing. If you look right there to the seat on the right, it's not another person. It's actually a wireless tower. It's a radio. Before Benny even wrote the tactics, techniques, and procedures for the basic operation of the airplane, he was thinking about the applications of intelligence, communication, maybe make the case of early electronic warfare. He was putting wireless radios in the first airplane because he asked those questions. What if? Why not? Today, you and the airmen you're expected to lead are also going to be expected to think about what's next. So Benny and his team had to think pretty innovatively, and they had developed everything from scratch, including the TTPs, the tactics and procedures that I mentioned, for the employment of air power. He would fly all day, and then he would document by night in an iterative process of rapid development and documentation, similar to what our Air Force Defense Innovation Unit, or DIU, does today in places like Boston, out in California, in Silicon Valley, and in Austin, Texas. Some of you might go to work for DIU, or for the Kessel Run team. If you haven't read about them, it's fascinating. This team, a number of them, are able to instantly put innovative companies out there in industry on contract with the United States Air Force to develop really fascinating capabilities and technologies, frankly, far more rapidly than our traditional historic bureaucratic processes. Far from those bureaucratic processes of old, the Air Force is innovating with unique partnerships and wants to partner with people who ask why not, and what if. What if we had loyal wingman drones that followed our fighters and jammed, communicated, and acted as decoys when missiles were inbound? What if a pilot could absorb or send one of these wingman drones forward to absorb the early missile shot? What if the RQ-4 intelligence drone could also double as a satellite communications relay to keep manned aircraft out of harm's way? What if we could do software development in real time and push updates to places like the Combined Air Operations Center, 20,000 miles away, quickly and remotely, instead of waiting months, for years perhaps, for contractor-delivered upgrades? Why not? Why can't an Air Force cyber operator in San Antonio, Texas, sitting at her console, send signals, perhaps packets of code, to a satellite in space, and then on to an EC-130 Compass Call aircraft, and push those ones and zeros, that packet, out the analog waveform produced by electronic warfare aircraft, to turn back into ones and zeros, affecting an 802.11 network, a Wi-Fi network, back on the ground? Why not indeed? Ladies and gentlemen, everything I just described to you is already happening. And it's happening because young airmen like you, like Benny did 100 years ago, asked those big three questions. In fact, just 4 years after bolting wheels to Signal Corps' first airplane, Benny, then a captain, was in command of the 1st Aero Squadron, made up of 6 Curtiss JN-4 Jennies, based at Fort Sam. Later that year, in 1916, Pancho Villa crossed into New Mexico and killed 17 Americans. In response, Brigadier General John J. Pershing was directed to pursue Pancho Villa throughout Mexico. And Floyd was ordered to take 8 airplanes to pursue, to provide reconnaissance and communication. On the 15th of March, Floyd and the 1st Aero Squadron arrived at Columbus, New Mexico for duty. The next day, on the 16th, he was flying as the first American military reconnaissance flight over foreign territory, overflying Mexico in search of Pancho Villa. Today, our Air Force cyberspace operators, airmen that you will have the privilege to lead, are pursuing foreign air service in both Air Force networks and in foreign partner networks. But instead of operating Curtiss JN-4 Jennies, they're operating the CY-39 Senate Interceptor weapon system, and among others, as part of U.S. Cybercom's cyber mission forces. Now, Benny Floyd went on from chasing Pancho Villa with a single squadron and a few dozen men to leading American expeditionary forces in World War I, dozens of squadrons and hundreds of men, or really thousands of men. In 5 years, the Army Signal Corps went from that to that. In just over 15 years more, they went to that. Where will we be in 15 years? That's for you to decide. In fact, Benny Floyd, the man who sat in a wicker seat next to Orville Wright, and keep in mind now, we're talking about one lifetime. He sat in that wicker seat next to Orville Wright, but he died at the age of 87, in 1967, living to see the masterwork that was Kelly Johnson's SR-71. In one lifetime, wood and fabric, 35 miles an hour, to spacesuits, titanium, and 3,500 miles an hour. In one lifetime. From 200 feet above the ground to 70,000 feet above the ground, Mach 3. What are you going to see in your lifetime? So look around your tables. Are you really that different from Benny Floyd or the squadrons you see on the screen before you? I'd offer that neither he nor his contemporaries thought at the time that people were going to write books about them. But they have. As they will about you. There it is. A little old. But it's you. So, to close out this first story, I'm going to leave you with one final insight as we stare at this picture of Benny Floyd. I firmly believe that somewhere in this room among us is, and very well may be, the next Benny Floyd. And in fact, somewhere in this room is very likely the next Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force or Chief of Staff of the Air Force. I mean, think about it. They've got to come from somewhere. Somewhere in a room like this, 25 years ago, there was a young airman, Joanne Bass, or a young lieutenant, C.Q. Brown, sitting at a round table, wishing the speech would be over, and their squadron is coming out. And 25 years later, they're running our Air Force. They have to come from somewhere. And if you believe that, as I do, that you may have the opportunity to be the person that influences that next Chief of Staff or next Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, it's kind of exciting. Because then you get to come to work every day believing that you've got the chance, the opportunity, in fact, the privilege of shaping that future leader. You should lead your airmen as a first-line supervisor, and hopefully eventually as a commander, as if you were molding the next Chief Master Sergeant or the next Chief of Staff, because it very well may be the case. You can all be Benny Falloy. In fact, you need to be. You can and you should expect your subordinates to think like Benny, to innovate like Benny, in fact, to be Benny. Okay, one more story to bridge us from Benny to us sitting in this room here today. This is Benny over the Fort Myer parade field. That first airplane scared the Army's horses. When you think about it, the horses, just like the humans, had never seen anything like this before. Noisy, rickety, spitting castor oil and smoke. And in fact, it scared the horses so much that Benny got into fights at Fort Sam with the cavalry units who were dutifully executing the drill that they were executing and had been executing for hundreds of years because the horses were scared. I like to say that the U.S. Air Force has been bucking convention and innovating by scaring the horses since 1909. This is Sergeant Bart Decker, an Air Force JTAC, Joint Terminal Air Control, who along with about 30 other battlefield airmen was dropped onto a mountaintop in Afghanistan shortly after the U.S. was attacked on 9/11, 2001. Along with U.S. Army Special Forces teams, he was one of the first Americans in uniform deployed to fight the Taliban and to bring to justice those who were plotting the next attacks on Western civilization. It's an amazing story. They made a movie about it. You should see it if you haven't. I also commend the books. The reading is always better than the watching. They linked up with the Afghan Northern Alliance, a group of tribes aligned under General Dostum. These hardened Afghan fighters rode bareback sometimes, or sometimes with wooden saddles. Many of these battlefield airmen that were dropped on those mountaintops had no experience with horses. They'd never ridden before. Bart actually had. But on his first airdrop resupply request, he added two things to his request: saddles and Vaseline. And when you think about it, you know, he asked the big three questions. He adapted and he overcame. And it is an incredible story of battlefield airmen and a true joint force of special operators that kicked off what ended up being a 20-plus year war to prevent another 9/11. Today, in the domain of cyberspace, I work with heroes like these, the heroes of the 315th Network Warfare Squadron, now the 315th Cyber Ops Squadron, as part of a task force, the Cyber National Mission Force of the U.S. Cyber Command. They do things that, frankly, we can't write books about just yet, maybe in time. They operate at the heart of and at the edge of cyberspace in a daily battle of competition and conflict with peer adversaries who intend and attempt to do us harm. We airmen, as you look at this slide, you think about it, we've gone from scaring the horses to riding the horses to now building Trojan horses in cyberspace. It's pretty cool. Okay, now I'd like to skip forward to move from history to the present day, where your fellow Det 720 airmen who sat in these chairs as early as 2 years ago were forward deployed with me to Baghdad in operations in Iraq and Syria, ensuring the enduring defeat of ISIS as part of the 79-nation coalition that is Combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve. And for what it's worth, every airman you will see in the following slides, in the remainder of this presentation, is a Penn Stater. And almost all of them are Det 720 grads. With a nod to our Army brothers and sisters, there's a good number of Wagner Building second and third floor folks in these pictures as well. But to tell you their story, our story, I need to take you back to 2015, when ISIS was at the peak of their self-described Islamic caliphate. ISIS was fueled by an aspirational ideology of hate, aimed at destroying the Western world and creating a new caliphate that would rule through Sharia law. ISIS leaders had aspirations of an Islamic caliphate that would rival the Roman Empire. Growing out of the miserable conditions and ungoverned spaces created by the Civil War, ISIS, otherwise known as Daesh, grew rapidly. They appealed to those who had no hope in their present conditions. Frankly, I would say they are pure evil. But in 2014, they controlled areas of nearly 110,000 square kilometers that spanned much of eastern Syria and Iraq. In fact, the areas that were red and green in there in 2014 were all black. This is already at the beginning of the conflict where we began to roll them back. But as I said, ISIS is in fact pure evil. They burn books, and they burn people. They destroyed entire ancient cultural heritage sites like Palmyra and Hatra in an act of retroactive cultural genocide. They laid waste to modern cities like Mosul and Samarra in a desperate attempt to reshape both history and the present to suit their sick vision of a return to a past that frankly never really existed. Folks, I have held in my hands school books that they used to teach children to count with pictures of weapons and of dead non-believers. I have thumbed through ledger books that describe the sale of stolen land, the sale of sheep and of horses, and the sale of women, age 60 at this price, age 20 at this price, age 12 at this price. In clinical detail, the ISIS ledger men recorded the value of all these things. They printed license plates. They even minted money. They stole and they destroyed. They promised their followers everything, but frankly, they created nothing. At the invitation of the government in Iraq, an international coalition of 79 nations formed and began to roll back the scourge that was ISIS. In 3 years of heavy fighting against an adapted enemy, this coalition took back the cities, towns, farms, and factories, and freed the people that ISIS held. Thanks to this international coalition, and particularly through withering American air power, again, not to take anything away from the incredible ground forces, our Marine and Army brothers and sisters who fought under the umbrella of incredible American air power, though, ISIS today is militarily defeated. In June of 2019, the last bit of ISIS-held territory there, in that little spot on the corner of Syria and Iraq, in the middle Euphrates River Valley, the town of Baghouz fell. The remnants of the ISIS army surrendered under that withering combined arms fire that I described, enabled largely by the greatest outpouring of American air power in modern history in terms of total strikes. But really, they were defeated by guys like Captain Sam Hero, right in the middle there. Det 720, class of 2009, pictured here with an ISIS flag at the liberation of Mosul in 2017, 2 years before the fall of Baghouz. And here he is, holding a much better flag at the Akhtan garrison. Same guy at ATG on the Syrian-Iraqi border further west, but this time along with his buddy, U.S. Army Special Forces Captain John Smurl, also a Penn State alum, class of 2011. It's amazing who you find out there in these places. Today, American airmen and many Penn Staters are still there, building and enhancing our Iraqi security force partners' ability to secure the enduring defeat of Daesh, so that one day soon, the Iraqis can keep Daesh down themselves, and we can all go home. But until then, A-10s, flown by airmen like Daniel Edgar, Det 720, class of 2001, stand watch, provide withering close air support. And yes, almost every cockpit you'll see here does have a Penn State flag somewhere in the picture. Not always easy to see, but they're there. So he's doing close air support, while guys like David Ox, class of 15, flying the HH-60G Pavehawk CSAR Hilo, assure that no aircrew ever fall into enemy hands. That's Captain Tyler Heister on the right there, and then Det 720 class of 15, I'm sorry, that's Tyler on the left, next to David. Tyler's a Viper driver, the F-16 guy. I don't know what he was doing, slumming with the likes of some rotary guys there. But Penn Staters find each other, and they often try to fly with each other wherever they can. They happen to get their exquisite signals intelligence from Nittany Lions like First Lieutenant Michaela Galut. She's the one on the left, the really unhappy, unmotivated looking person there. She and her husband Ryan, both class of 2018, both fly the venerable RC-135 Rivet Joint Surveillance Platform. Pretty much an unblinking eye, 24/7, in some of the craziest places in the world. And these Nittany Lions get their gas from guys like Daryl Matthews, class of 98, a boom operator on a KC-10. Fascinating story about Daryl. He started as a missileer. Lieutenant, Det 720 grad. Did a few years, got out. Missed it terribly. Couldn't come back in as an officer. Joined the Guard, enlisted, and he's a boom operator today, doing amazing things for our Air Force. That's Tech Sergeant Gerald Matthews. And he's in the back of a KC-10, flown by Penn State alums right there with their Penn State flag flying proudly in the window. All of these weapon systems, and many, many more, are enabled by position, navigation, and timing, provided by our Space Force now, a constellation of overhead satellites, launched by folks like Penn State Det 720 alums, Colonel Aaron Golden on the left, the Launch Mission Coordinator, Lieutenant Jaden Fries, he's the structures chief on the Delta IV, and Lieutenant Scott Costetter, material leader and the chief engineer at Delta IV. They're out there at Vandenberg right now, launching on a regular basis. West Coast representing, but so is the East Coast. There's guys like Tony Cole, our good friend, Colonel Tony Cole at Patrick Space Force Base in Florida. He also happens to be a great spring break host. Just ask some of the cadets who went down to Florida a few weeks ago. Tony set them up with a launch and a DV tour. It's pretty amazing. Again, Penn Staters everywhere. All you got to do is look. So, we're coming to the end here. Stick with that one for a moment. When I deploy forward, and folks, I've done so, like many in this room, to a dozen countries, 4 wars, lots of named operations, including 1,000 days in the Middle East. Or, as we in Cyber Command today are generating strategic response options for the President in the cyberspace domain, generating non-kinetic effects to be executed at direction to hold, for example, the Russians at bay in Ukraine, or posturing to defend the 2022 elections which are coming up. I do so knowing that there are always 2 things I can count on. The first is that American flag on my right sleeve still means a hell of a lot to our allies, to our enemies, and the people whose lives we try to make better by being somewhere. It's my insurance and it's my assurance that I'm never alone. It means I'm covered by others who wear that same flag. It means I've got a family in the air overhead, in a vehicle nearby, or, in many cases, behind a console 20,000 miles away on the other side of the globe, ready to join me in doing something really, really good for those who need us to be there, and something really, really bad for those who deserve it. The second thing I can count on is that I can find a Nittany Lion almost anywhere, in some of the strangest and most godforsaken places on this planet. This family of airmen with whom you sit tonight will be your family for life. You're going to run into each other time and time again. So pay your debts. Don't piss anybody off. Got that one. And very often, whether you know it or not, you will place your lives in each other's hands. And when you can connect and you can reconnect, as we get to do every time we come back up here, it's a truly magical thing. So Rebecca and I thank you. We thank you for the honor of being invited back, coming home, and we are so excited having you join this Air Force family of ours, because it is truly that. It is a family. So we can't wait to see you out in the force, being bold, being Betty, and being family. Thank you very, very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now perform the Saber Arch ceremony. I will be your narrator for this evening's Saber Arch ceremony. The ceremony is to honor the seniors graduating in the spring and fall of 2022. We will now begin the ceremony, which will be performed by our honor guard.
Center, his, dress center, has. Radio, hook, reason, sword, arch.
First up, Cadet Daniel Barry, walking with Lewis and Kim Barry. First up is Cadet Benesu. He's a political science major. His AFSC is Intel. The next is Cadet Daniel Berry, walking with Lewis and Cam Berry. He's an aerospace engineering major and a military studies minor. He will be an 11X pilot. Cadet Mitchell Byers, walking with Rick, Karen, and Lauren Byers.
Show that smile higher.
Next is Cadet Brewer, walking with his parents. Cadet Brewer is an aerospace engineering and will be continue as an 11X pilot. Cadet Alexia Kaunon, walking with Michael and Lisa Kaunon. Cadet Kaunon is a security and risk analyst and will be going into cyberspace operations. Cadet Brandon Carper, walking with Paul and Kristen Simpson and Robert and Jennifer Carpenter. Cadet Carpenter is a cybersecurity major, minor in military studies, and will be a cyber operator. Next, Cadet David Cooper, walking with Dave and Judy Cooper. Cadet Cooper is a security risk analysis major and will be a cyberspace operations AFSC. Next, Cadet Nakash Damle, walking with Ratnadeep and Tara Damle. He is a cybersecurity major and will be going into cyberspace operations. Next, Cadet Joshua Dasher, walking with Trish Dasher and Madison Cherry. Cadet Dasher will become a pilot and is a criminology major. Congratulations on graduating. Next, Cadet William Eggert, walking with Bill and Ava Eggert and Sage Jurentics. He is a chemical engineering major. Congratulations on graduating. Next, Cadet Haley Finstenmaker, walking with U.S. Army retired Lieutenant Colonel Brent and Lisa Finstenmaker. She is a biobehavioral health major and will become a contracting officer. Congratulations. Next, Cadet Anthony Foltz, walking with Natalie and Eric Foltz and Andrea Peabody. Cadet Fultz is a civil engineering major and will be going into a civil engineering AFSC. Congratulations. Next is Cadet Sean Hazlett, walking with Claire Dinsener and Mark and Susan Hazlett. Cadet Hazlett. Cadet Hazlett is a civil engineering, never mind, excuse me. He's an aerospace engineering major and a developmental engineer and aeronautic engineer. Congratulations on graduating. Next is Cadet Hijab. Walking with his parents and his significant other. Congratulations on graduating. Next is Cadet Ifkin. Cadet Ifkin, congratulations on graduating. Next, Cadet Tyler James, walking with Lee Ann Charles and Keely Fiwoski and Mulaney Narsini. He is a mechanical engineer and will be going into cyberspace operations. Congratulations on graduating. Next, Cadet Wyoming Jeffries, walking with his wife, Rebecca Jeffries. Cadet Jeffries is an economics major and will go into acquisitions manager AFSC. Congratulations, Cadet Jeffries. Cadet Avery Jones, walking with Ronald and Wendy Jones. Cadet Jones is a security and risk analysis major and will go into the cyberspace operations 17 Delta AFSC. Congratulations. Next, Cadet Harris. Congratulations on graduating. Next, Cadet Peter is Cadet Luke Dorigo, walking with Ann Felon. Congratulations on graduating, Luke. Next, our very own Wing King, Cadet Peter Juriga, walking with Tom and Mary Juriga. Congratulations on graduating, Cadet Juriga. Next, Cadet Katie Kelly, walking with Mary Lou and Christopher Kelly. She's a civil engineering major. Congratulations on graduating. Cadet James Levery, walking with Edward and Maureen Levery and Helena Swagner. He's a mathematics major and will be going in as a pilot. Congratulations. Cadet Jacob Lobash, walking with Cher, Frank, and Emma Lobash. He's a civil engineering major and will be going into 11MX. Congratulations. Brooke McLaughlin, walking with Fenton and Angelina McLaughlin. She's a civil engineering major and will be going in as a civil engineering officer. Congratulations. Next, Cadet Ashley Narain, walking with Bobby Nalini Narain. She is a global international studies major and will be going in as an intelligent in the Space Force. Congratulations. Next, our wonderful PFO, Cadet Andy Navat, walking with Cadet James and Cadet Brewer. Congratulations. Next, Cadet Matthew Ross, walking with David, Jody, and Michael, and Janet Ross with Judy Durham. Next, Cadet Brady Smith, walking with Stephen Smith and Patricia Sharbeck. He's a criminology major and will be going in as a pilot. Congratulations. Cadet Cortland Sperry, walking with Mackenzie McLeod. He's a civil engineering major and will be going into nuclear and missiles operations. Congratulations. Cadet Lilia Stewart, walking with Jennifer and Sean Stewart. She's a criminology major and will be going as an aircraft maintenance officer. Congratulations on graduating. Cadet David Taglieri, walking with Al and Patricia Taglieri. He's a civil engineering major and will be going in as a civil engineering officer. Congratulations. Next, Cadet Natalie White, walking with Susan and Steve Livingston and John White. She's a labor and human resources major and will be going in as a financial management officer. Congratulations. Cadet Alyssa Wicks, walking with Jeffrey and Cindy Wicks. She is an environmental systems engineer and will be going in as an acquisitions manager. Congratulations. And finally, Cadet Kira Zeller, walking with Robert and Danielle Zeller. She's a physics and electronics operations major and will be going in as a physicist officer and missile operations. Congratulations on graduating.
To recognize very important members of our detachment that will be leaving us this summer. Lieutenant Colonel Ozenblowski will be retiring from the United States Air Force this summer after over 22 years of service. Lieutenant Colonel Paula Kelly will also be retiring with over 2 decades of service to our nation as well. Master Sergeant Samantha Simons will be moving on from Detachment 720 this summer, PCSing to Hill Air Force Base in Utah. These members of our detachment cadre have worked extremely very hard for the cadets of Detachment 720, aiding them with fulfilling their goals to becoming future officers in the United States Air Force. They will be sorely missed. On behalf of Detachment 720, I would like to present them with the wing coin to express our gratitude for all their hard work. All three, would you please come and meet me at the center?
Well, I was just looking around the room, and I will say there are a lot of beautiful people here today. For all my cadets here, I want you to look those people that support you in the eyes and say thank you for coming to this event today, because they are what allow you to do what you do. Good or bad, they're there to support you. Just like as cadre members, we're here to support your growth. So we had a little fun tonight. We celebrated a little tradition. We got some words of wisdom from a great leader and former graduate of Det 720. More importantly, we'll have some time to socialize at the end of this. I would like all those responsible for putting on tonight's event to include Cadet Bensal, Jeffries, the whole team. If everybody would stand, I think you deserve some public recognition for putting on a great event. And Beth Newman, you better not stay seated in that chair. So everybody who had a part in putting this on, let's stand on up. Penn State, your staff, I just want to say thank you for supporting us in one of the first and largest events we've been able to gather in several years together. And that's really what this journey is about. It's about learning alongside one another. It's about making yourself better each day. I am so proud of this cadet wing for all that they've accomplished in this term. We're as close to what we were 3 years ago today as I could have hoped. And I want to thank all the parents and friends in the audience with us tonight, because it has been our cadre's pleasure to work with your children and to watch them grow in confidence, to watch them become that energetic person that likes to come to the Det every day. They also do some crazy things inside that detachment we won't speak of, but I will tell you, it's been a pleasure to see them back at it and in person. And I want to say thank you for your attendance tonight. Joe Maramucci, Becky, thank you again for coming. To all our guests at the head table, including my bride, Jen, thank you for sticking alongside me for 30 plus years. It's been a pleasure to see this team put together this event tonight. Cadet Bensal, well done.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and join us in retiring with colors and the singing of the first verse of the Air Force song. The Air Force song can be found inside this evening's program.
Retrieve the colors.
Now join us as we sing the first verse of the Air Force song. Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, soon to be our thunder. At 'em now, give 'em the gun, give 'em the gun, hey! Down we dive, sight the flames from under. Off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame, we go down in flame. Hey! Nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force. This concludes our program. We now stand at ease. Kids are asked to stay for organizational class pictures and dancing. Thank you all for coming so much once again, and enjoy the rest of your year.